Ben Martinez stood in front of his bathroom mirror at 5 in the morning, trying to make his old tie look professional. The fabric was worn at the edges, and there was a small stain near the bottom that he hoped nobody would notice. He had ironed his white shirt 3 times the night before, making sure every wrinkle was gone. Today was important. Today could change everything. In the next room, his 8-year-old daughter Amy was still sleeping. Her breathing was a little heavy, the way it had been for months now. The doctors said her heart condition was getting worse. They needed to do surgery soon, but surgery cost money. A lot of money that Ben did not have. Ben walked quietly to Amy's room and looked at her small face on the pillow. She looked so peaceful when she slept. During the day, she tried to be brave for him. She never complained when she got tired from walking too much. She never asked why they ate pasta every night or why they had to move to a smaller apartment after her mother died 2 years ago. "I will fix this, sweetheart," Ben whispered to his sleeping daughter. "I promise I will fix this." He went to the kitchen and made coffee with the last bit of coffee beans he had. The refrigerator was almost empty. Just some milk for Amy's cereal and leftover pasta from yesterday. Ben had been living on coffee and hope for the past few weeks, saving every penny for Amy's needs. His phone buzzed with a text message from Mrs. Chen, the neighbor who watched Amy when Ben went to job interviews. "Good luck today. Amy can stay here as long as you need. Praying for you both." Ben smiled a little. Mrs. Chen was 70 years old and lived alone. She had become like a grandmother to Amy, always making extra soup and finding reasons to invite them over for dinner. She never asked for money to watch Amy, even though Ben knew she lived on a small pension. Ben looked at his reflection one more time. His hair was getting too long, but haircuts cost money he did not have. His shoes were old but polished. His briefcase was a gift from his wife Sarah before she got sick. She had been so proud when he graduated from college with his marketing degree. She believed he would do great things. The job interview was at Soulline Industries, one of the biggest companies in the city. Ben had applied for a senior marketing position. The salary would be enough to pay for Amy's surgery and maybe even move to a better neighborhood with good schools. He had studied everything about the company for 2 weeks. He knew their products, their history, their mission statement. He was ready. Ben took the bus downtown because his car had broken down last month. He could not afford to fix it, so he sold it for a few $100s to pay rent. The bus was crowded with people going to work. Everyone looked busy and important. Ben tried to imagine himself as one of them again, having a regular job, a steady income, a future. When he arrived at Soulline Industries, Ben stood outside the tall glass building for a moment. It looked expensive and powerful. Cars were parked outside that probably cost more than Ben had made in his entire life. He took a deep breath and walked through the revolving doors. The lobby was huge with marble floors and modern art on the walls. There were comfortable leather chairs and a coffee station that smelled amazing. Ben approached the reception desk where a young woman with a bright smile greeted him. "Good morning. I'm Ben Martinez. I have an interview at 10 o'clock for the senior marketing position." "Of course, Mr. Martinez. Please have a seat. Someone will be with you shortly." Ben sat down and looked around. There were 3 other people waiting, and they all looked much more successful than him. One man wore a suit that probably cost more than Ben's monthly rent. A woman was typing on an expensive laptop while talking on a phone that looked brand new. Ben felt his confidence start to slip away. He opened his briefcase and reviewed his notes one more time. He had written down questions to ask and points he wanted to make about his experience. Before Sarah got sick, Ben had worked for a small advertising company. He was good at his job and had some creative ideas that helped their clients. But when Sarah needed him, he had to quit to take care of her and Amy. A tall man in a gray suit approached the waiting area. "Mr. Martinez. I'm David Wilson. I'll be conducting your interview today." Ben stood up and shook his hand firmly, just like Sarah had taught him. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Wilson." They walked through hallways with glass walls. Ben could see people working at desks with multiple computer screens. Everyone looked busy and important. Ben tried to walk with confidence, but inside he felt like he did not belong in such a fancy place. The interview room was big with a long table made of dark wood. 5 people were sitting on one side of the table, all wearing expensive clothes and serious expressions. Ben sat on the opposite side by himself. He felt very small. "Thank you for coming in today," David Wilson said. "Let me introduce the team. This is Jennifer from Human Resources, Mark from Marketing, Lisa from Finance, and Robert from Operations." Everyone nodded politely. Ben smiled and said hello to each person, trying to remember their names. His heart was beating fast, and he hoped they could not hear it. "So, Ben," Jennifer from Human Resources began, "tell us about yourself." Ben had practiced this answer many times. He talked about his education, his experience at the advertising company, and his skills with marketing campaigns. He tried to sound confident and professional. "That's interesting," Mark from Marketing said. "I see here that you have been unemployed for 2 years. Can you explain that gap in your employment?" Ben's stomach dropped. This was the question he had been afraid of. He knew they would ask, but he still was not ready for it. He looked at the 5 faces staring at him, waiting for an answer. "Well," Ben started, his voice a little quieter than before, "my wife became very sick 2 years ago. She had cancer, and someone needed to take care of her and our daughter. I made the decision to leave my job so I could be there for my family." The room became very quiet. Ben could hear the clock on the wall ticking. He continued, "My wife passed away 8 months ago. Since then, I have been looking for work while taking care of my daughter. She has some health issues that require attention, but I am fully committed to returning to work now." Jennifer wrote something down on her paper. Lisa from Finance looked uncomfortable. Robert from Operations checked his phone. Ben felt like he was sinking into his chair. "I understand that was a difficult time," David Wilson said in a voice that sounded like he was reading from a script. "But in marketing, things change very quickly. How do you plan to catch up with 2 years of changes in the industry?" Ben straightened up in his chair. "I have been studying current trends and taking online courses during my time away from work. I understand that social media marketing has grown significantly, and I have been learning about new platforms and strategies. I may have been away from an office, but I never stopped learning." The questions continued for 30 minutes. They asked about his experience with different marketing tools, his ideas for reaching new customers, and his ability to work in a team. Ben answered as best as he could, but he could see in their faces that they had already made up their minds. "Do you have any questions for us?" David Wilson asked. Ben had prepared several questions, but now they seemed pointless. "What does success look like in this position?" he asked anyway. "We need someone who can hit the ground running," Mark from Marketing answered. "Someone who can work long hours when needed and travel for client meetings. We need someone who is 100% focused on the job." Ben understood what he was really saying. They needed someone without family responsibilities. Someone who would not need to leave early for doctor appointments or stay home with a sick child. "I see," Ben said quietly. "Well, I want you to know that I am very interested in this position, and I would work hard to exceed your expectations. We appreciate your time today," Jennifer from Human Resources said with a polite smile that did not reach her eyes. "We have several more candidates to interview, but we will be in touch within the week." Ben knew what those words meant. He had heard them before at other interviews. They meant no. They meant not good enough. They meant try somewhere else. "Thank you for your time," Ben said, standing up and shaking hands with each person around the table. His hand was steady, even though his heart was breaking. Ben walked out of the interview room with his head up, even though he wanted to run. He walked through the fancy hallways and past the busy workers and out into the lobby with its marble floors and expensive art. He pressed the elevator button and waited. Inside the elevator, Ben finally let his shoulders drop. He looked at his reflection in the polished metal doors and saw a man who was trying so hard but kept falling short. The elevator took him down to the parking garage where his life was waiting for him. A life of struggle and worry and not enough money for the people who needed him most. As the elevator doors opened, Ben Martinez stepped out into the concrete garage and walked toward the bus stop, not knowing that his life was about to change in ways he could never imagine. Ben walked slowly through the parking garage toward the street. His footsteps echoed in the empty concrete space. Each step felt heavy, like he was carrying the weight of all his failures. He thought about Amy waiting at Mrs. Chen's house, probably doing her homework or watching cartoons. Soon he would have to pick her up and pretend that everything was okay. What would he tell her? Amy always asked how his interviews went. She was only 8 years old, but she understood that Daddy needed a job. She understood that they needed money for her doctor visits. Sometimes Ben thought his daughter was too smart for her own good. The parking garage was cold and gray. Ben could see his breath in the air. He pulled his jacket tighter around himself and kept walking. Above him, fluorescent lights buzzed and flickered. The sound reminded him of the hospital where Sarah had spent her last months. Everything reminded him of something sad these days. Ben reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He had 17 missed calls from other companies where he had applied for jobs. Maybe one of them had good news. Maybe today was not completely lost. But when he looked at the calls, they were all from debt collection agencies. People who wanted money he did not have. He put the phone back in his pocket without listening to the messages. Ben knew what they would say. Pay your bills. Pay your wife's medical bills. Pay for your daughter's medicine. Pay, pay, pay. If he had money to pay, he would not be walking through parking garages after failed job interviews. Ben thought about the people in that interview room. They had looked at him like he was broken. Like being a good father and husband made him weak. Like taking care of the people you love was a character flaw instead of the most important thing in the world. His wife Sarah would have been angry about that interview. She would have said those people did not deserve someone like Ben. Sarah always believed in him, even when he did not believe in himself. She used to say that the right opportunity would come at the right time. Ben wondered if Sarah had been wrong about that. As Ben walked toward the exit of the parking garage, he heard something strange. It sounded like footsteps running behind him. Fast footsteps, like someone was in a hurry. Ben turned around to see if someone needed help. What he saw made him stop walking completely. A woman was running toward him. Not just any woman, but a woman wearing an expensive business suit and high heels. She was running fast, and her long dark hair was flying behind her. Her face looked determined, like she was chasing something very important. Ben recognized her immediately. It was Maria Sterling, the CEO of Sterling Industries. Her picture was on the company website and in business magazines. She was one of the most powerful women in the city. And she was running after him. "Wait," Maria called out, still running. "Please wait." Ben stood frozen in place. Why was the CEO of a billion-dollar company running after him in a parking garage? Maybe she had mistaken him for someone else. Maybe she thought he was someone important. Maria reached him and stopped running. She was breathing hard from running so fast. Her expensive heels were not made for running on concrete floors. She put her hand on her chest and tried to catch her breath. "Are you Ben Martinez?" she asked between breaths. "Yes, ma'am," Ben answered, completely confused. "Is everything okay?" Maria looked at him with dark brown eyes that seemed to see right through him. "I was watching your interview from my office," she said. "I have a video feed that lets me see what happens in our interview rooms. I watch sometimes to see how our hiring process works. Ben felt embarrassed. The CEO had watched his failure. She had seen him stumble through questions and get rejected by her employees. "I'm sorry the interview didn't go better," he said. "Don't apologize," Maria said quickly. "I need to ask you something. When you talked about your wife and daughter, everything you said was true?" "Yes, ma'am. Every word." Maria stared at him for a long moment. Her breathing was back to normal now, but her face still looked intense. "My father died when I was 9 years old," she said suddenly. "He had a heart attack at work one day and never came home." Ben did not know why she was telling him this, but he listened carefully. "My mother was left alone with 3 children and no money," Maria continued. "She worked 3 jobs to keep us fed and housed. She cleaned offices at night, worked in a cafeteria during the day, and did laundry for rich families on weekends. She never had time to rest." Maria's voice was strong, but Ben could hear pain in it. "I used to get angry at her for never being home. I didn't understand then what she was doing for us. I thought she didn't want to spend time with us." "I'm sorry," Ben said softly. "That must have been very hard." "It was hard," Maria agreed. "But my mother taught me something important. She taught me that family comes first, always. She taught me that taking care of the people you love is not weakness. It's strength." Ben felt his throat getting tight. This powerful woman was telling him something very personal, and he did not understand why. Maria reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a business card. It was thick and expensive looking, with gold lettering. "Those people in that interview room didn't understand what I was seeing," she said. "They saw someone who had gaps in his work history. I saw someone who knows what really matters in life." She handed him the business card. Ben looked at it and saw her name and title, Maria Sterling, Chief Executive Officer. On the back, someone had written a phone number in blue ink. "That's my personal number," Maria said. "The job you interviewed for today was a senior marketing position. It pays $60,000 a year and reports to a manager who reports to another manager who reports to me." Ben nodded, not understanding where this conversation was going. "I'm offering you a different job," Maria continued. "I want you to be our Director of Family Initiatives. You would report directly to me. Your job would be to create programs that help working parents balance their jobs with their family responsibilities." Ben felt like the ground was moving under his feet. "I don't understand," he said. "This company makes billions of dollars every year," Maria explained. "But we lose good employees because they can't handle the stress of work and family life. Parents quit because they can't find good childcare. They leave because they can't take time off when their children are sick. They struggle because we don't understand their needs." Maria started walking slowly, and Ben walked beside her. "I want you to change that," she said. "I want you to create an on-site daycare center. I want you to design flexible work schedules for parents. I want you to build programs that help families like yours succeed." "But I don't have experience running those kinds of programs," Ben said. "You have something more important than experience," Maria replied. "You have lived it. You know what it's like to choose between a career and taking care of someone you love. You know what it's like to worry about money while worrying about a sick child." They stopped walking near the exit of the parking garage. Cars were driving by on the street outside. Normal people living normal lives, going home to their families. "The salary for this position is $120,000 a year," Maria said. "Plus full health benefits for you and your daughter. Plus access to the best doctors in the city through our executive health program." Ben felt dizzy. That was more money than he had ever made in his life. That was enough money to pay for Amy's surgery and still have plenty left over. That was enough money to give his daughter the life she deserved. "Why are you doing this?" Ben asked. "You don't even know me." Maria smiled for the first time since she had been chasing him. "I told you about my mother working 3 jobs," she said. Do you know what I wish had existed when I was a child? I wish there had been a company that understood what my mother was going through. I wish there had been someone who cared about families like mine. She looked directly into Ben's eyes. I can't go back and help my mother, but I can help other parents now. And I can't think of anyone better to lead that effort than someone who has lived through exactly what our employees are facing. Ben thought about Amy waiting at Mrs. Chen's house. He thought about the pile of medical bills on his kitchen table. He thought about his wife Sarah, who had always believed that good things happen to good people. What would I need to do? Ben asked. First, you would spend time talking to our employees who are parents, Maria answered. You would find out what they need and what problems they face. Then you would create solutions. Childcare, flexible schedules, family leave policies, whatever it takes. Maria reached into her pocket again and pulled out another card. This one had an address written on it. This is where our offices are located. Can you start on Monday? I know it's short notice, but we need to move quickly on this. Ben looked at the card in his hand. Monday was 3 days away. 3 days to change his entire life. 3 days to go from hopeless to hopeful. I need to ask you something, Ben said. My daughter Amy has a heart condition. She needs surgery soon, and she has doctor appointments regularly. Will that be a problem? Maria's expression became very serious. Ben, part of your job will be to make sure that things like that are never a problem for any parent who works at this company. Take care of your daughter first. Everything else comes second. Ben felt tears starting in his eyes, but he blinked them away. Yes, he said. I would be honored to take this job. Thank you. Maria shook his hand firmly. Thank you, Ben. I think you're going to change a lot of lives, including your own. As Ben walked out of the parking garage and toward the bus stop, he felt like he was floating. In his pocket, he carried 2 business cards that represented a completely different future. A future where Amy could get the medical care she needed. A future where Ben could take care of his daughter and still have a career. For the first time in 2 years, Ben Martinez smiled a real smile as he waited for the bus to take him home to Amy. 6 months later, Ben Martinez stood in his new office on the 15th floor of Sterling Industries. Through the large windows, he could see the entire city spread out below him. The view was beautiful, but what made Ben smile was what he could hear through his office door. Children's laughter was coming from down the hallway. The sound came from the new childcare center that Ben had helped design and build. It was bright and colorful, with toys and books and teachers who truly cared about the children. 23 children spent their days there while their parents worked in the building. Amy was one of those children. Ben walked to his desk and picked up a photo that sat next to his computer. It showed Amy in her hospital bed after her heart surgery 3 months ago. She was smiling and giving a thumbs up to the camera. The surgery had been a complete success. Her heart was strong now, and she could run and play like other children her age. The best doctors in the city had performed Amy's surgery. The company's executive health program had paid for everything. Ben had been able to take 2 weeks off work to stay with Amy in the hospital, and Maria had visited them every day. She brought books for Amy and coffee for Ben, and she never once made Ben feel like he should be at work instead of with his daughter. Ben's desk was covered with papers and reports. He was working on a new program to help employees who had elderly parents that needed care. It was based on requests from workers who were struggling to balance their jobs with taking care of their aging mothers and fathers. Ben understood their problem because he had lived through something similar with Sarah. There was a knock on his office door. Come in, Ben called out. Lisa Rodriguez walked into the office carrying a folder full of papers. Lisa worked in the accounting department, and she had 2 young children. Before the new program started, Lisa had been thinking about quitting her job because childcare was too expensive and too far away. Good morning, Ben, Lisa said with a big smile. I wanted to give you the final numbers for the parent satisfaction survey. Ben took the folder and opened it. The numbers were even better than he had hoped. 96% of parents who worked at the company said the new family programs had improved their lives. 88% said they were less stressed at work. Most importantly, 99% said they planned to stay at the company for at least 5 more years. These are incredible results, Ben said, looking through the papers. What about the cost analysis? That's the best part, Lisa replied. The company is actually saving money. We're not losing experienced employees anymore, so we don't have to spend money training new people. The productivity numbers are up 23% in departments where parents use the family programs. Ben had known the programs would help families, but he had not expected them to help the company so much. Maria had been right when she said that taking care of employees was good business. There's something else, Lisa continued. My daughter Rosa drew you a picture. She wanted me to give it to you. Lisa handed Ben a piece of paper with a drawing made in colorful crayons. It showed a man in a suit standing next to a building with children playing outside. At the top, in a child's handwriting, it said, "Thank you Mr. Ben for letting my mommy work and stay with me too." Ben felt his throat get tight with emotion. This was why he loved his job. It was not just about policies and programs. It was about real families with real children who needed their parents. Please tell Rosa I said thank you, Ben said. And tell her I'm going to hang this picture on my wall. After Lisa left, Ben walked down the hallway to check on the childcare center. Through the glass windows, he could see children playing and learning. Amy was sitting at a small table with 3 other children, working on an art project. Her cheeks were pink and healthy, and her hair had grown back thick and shiny after the surgery. Amy looked up and saw her father watching. She waved enthusiastically and held up her artwork. It was a painting of a rainbow with flowers underneath. Ben waved back and pointed to his watch. It was almost time for lunch, which they ate together every day in the company cafeteria. Ben continued walking to the conference room where he had a meeting scheduled with Maria. Every Tuesday, they met to discuss the family programs and plan new initiatives. Ben had learned that Maria was not just a successful businesswoman, but also someone who genuinely cared about making life better for working families. When Ben entered the conference room, Maria was already there with 2 cups of coffee and a plate of sandwiches from the cafeteria. She always made sure there was food at their meetings because she knew Ben often forgot to eat when he was focused on his work. Good morning, Ben, Maria said. How was your weekend with Amy? Wonderful, Ben replied, sitting down across from her. We went to the park, and she was able to run around for hours without getting tired. The doctors say her heart is completely healed. I'm so glad to hear that, Maria said with genuine happiness in her voice. She's such a special little girl. Ben opened his folder and pulled out several documents. I have updates on 3 new programs. The first is the emergency childcare service for when children are too sick to come to the regular daycare. The second is the flexible work schedule for parents who need to attend school events. The third is the lactation rooms for new mothers. Maria listened carefully as Ben explained each program. She asked thoughtful questions and made suggestions for improvement. Ben had learned that Maria's success came from her ability to listen to people and understand what they needed. There's something I want to discuss with you, Maria said when Ben finished his presentation. I've been thinking about expanding these programs to our other offices around the country. We have 12 locations, and each one could benefit from what we've built here. Ben's eyes widened. That would help thousands of families, he said. Exactly, Maria replied. I want you to lead that expansion. It would mean some travel, but we would make sure Amy is always taken care of. You could bring her with you, or she could stay here with Mrs. Chen and use the childcare center. Ben thought about the opportunity. He would be able to help families across the entire country. Children like Amy would have parents who could work and still be present for the important moments. It was more than he had ever dreamed possible. I would love to take on that challenge, Ben said. But I want to make sure we do it right. Each location might have different needs based on the community they serve. That's exactly why you're the right person for this job, Maria said. You understand that families are not all the same. You know how to listen and adapt. Their meeting continued for another hour. They discussed budgets and timelines and implementation strategies. Ben realized that he was no longer the desperate man who had walked out of a failed interview 6 months ago. He had become someone who could make real changes in the world. When the meeting ended, Ben walked back toward his office. He stopped at the childcare center to pick up Amy for lunch. She ran to him with her arms open wide, and he lifted her up in a big hug. "Daddy, guess what?" Amy said excitedly. "Mrs. Susan taught us about butterflies today, and she said they start as caterpillars and then they change into something beautiful." "That's amazing, sweetheart," Ben said, carrying her toward the cafeteria. "Did you know that sometimes people can change too? Sometimes they can become something better than they were before." "Like you did, Daddy?" Amy asked. "You used to be sad, and now you're happy." Ben stopped walking and looked at his daughter's bright, intelligent eyes. "How did you know I was sad before?" he asked. "I could tell," Amy said simply. "But now you smile real smiles, not pretend ones." In the cafeteria, Ben and Amy sat at their usual table near the windows. Other employees waved hello, and several stopped to chat with Amy about her art projects or her favorite books. Amy had become like a little mascot for the company, and everyone loved seeing her happy and healthy. While they ate lunch, Ben looked around the cafeteria and saw something beautiful. He saw parents eating lunch with their children. He saw pregnant women who knew they would have support when their babies arrived. He saw older employees who were not stressed about caring for their aging parents. Most importantly, Ben saw Maria sitting at a table across the room. She was eating lunch with 3 other executives, but she was also watching the families around them with a smile on her face. She caught Ben's eye and raised her coffee cup in a small toast. Ben raised his water glass in return. After lunch, Ben walked Amy back to the childcare center and returned to his office. On his desk, he found a letter that had been delivered while he was at lunch. The return address showed it was from another company in a different city. Ben opened it and began to read. The letter was from a working mother who had heard about Sterling Industries' family programs. She was asking if her company could implement similar programs. She wrote about her struggles balancing work and motherhood, and how she dreamed of working for a company that understood her challenges. Ben smiled and added the letter to a growing pile of similar requests. Companies across the country were hearing about what Sterling Industries had accomplished. They wanted to learn how to create their own family-friendly programs. As the afternoon continued, Ben worked on plans for the national expansion. He thought about all the families who would benefit from these programs. He thought about children who would grow up knowing that their parents' love for them was seen as a strength, not a weakness. At 5 o'clock, Ben packed up his work and went to collect Amy from the childcare center. As they rode the elevator down to the first floor, Amy chattered about her day and made plans for their evening together. Walking through the lobby toward the exit, Ben remembered the day 6 months ago when he had walked through the same lobby feeling defeated and hopeless. Today, he walked through it as a successful professional whose work mattered. Outside the building, Amy pointed up at the high floors where her daddy worked. "Someday I want to help families like you do, Daddy," she said. Ben knelt down to Amy's level and looked into her eyes. "You can do anything you want to do, sweetheart," he said. "And whatever you choose, I'll be there to support you." As they walked toward the bus stop together, Ben thought about Sarah and how proud she would be of the life they had built. He thought about Maria and how a single act of kindness had changed everything. He thought about all the families whose lives were better because someone had believed that taking care of the people you love was the most important job in the world. Ben Martinez had learned that sometimes the best opportunities come after the biggest disappointments. Sometimes you have to walk away from the wrong thing before you can find the right thing. And sometimes, the most powerful people are the ones who remember what it feels like to need help.